the magic of editing, just like that. Here we are, my part two of my Talking Head. Overall, general impressions of Halloween Horror Nights 23. We're almost done, I promise. Um, we talked about the houses in the first video and some of the overall general impressions. Now we're going to talk about the streets, the dreaded streets, the dreaded Walking Dead everywhere streets. Um, the first thing I'll say about the streets is that the streets were fine. There was nothing that I can really complain about. And well, complain is a strong word because I do have problems with some of the stuff that were in the streets this year or how they presented the streets. But for the most part, the streets were fine. For me, the biggest thing about the streets, the most fun for the streets this year were the little things, the little nuances that elevated the streets to something else. For example, in Fall of Atlanta, you had a little show type of thing, not really a show, but little random events that would happen with some of the survivors that were walking around. And some of the survivors that were walking around would get, chased around by a walker, or in some cases chased around by by walkers to the tank and get bitten and then turn into a zombie. Like there were little nuances this year that I really dug about the streets, and that kind of elevated it for me. They started the year with smells in the streets as well. They had smells that were being pumped through the fog, I believe. So when you walk through the streets of Atlanta, for example, it smelled like rotting decay or rotting flesh or some kind of pungent, gross odor. Those were quickly gone away. The story I heard was that the food vendors were complaining because people were complaining or not, buying food or something. I don't know. But smells kind of went away after the first weekend. They weren't as prominent. Over in the near the barn, they had it smelled like burning flesh or rotting flesh. Same type of deal, but a little bit different. Those kind of went away as well. So the smells didn't last very long, but when you got to experience it, it brought the streets to a different level. And that's the only reason why my ranking of the streets has gone down a little bit, because the experience was tied together with walking around and having the smells and stuff. It just all kind of brought it together, and little nuances and stuff like that. The Walker Bomb was a good addition. A whole lot of fun that was. And different areas of the park came out. Must have been a logistical nightmare to bring that van, especially on busy nights, trying to traverse the crowds. But a really great touch. The barn was awesome. The woodlands were kind of whatever. It did have the walker eating the deer. They added the second weekend of the event, I think they added Michonne's pets, these two animatronic puppet things that were tied to a tree. That was quite fun. The campsite was a whole lot of fun. The little things. They had a little event that happened in one of the tents every once in a while. Eventually, they started having survivors go up to the top of the trailer and were shooting at zombies and stuff like that. So for me, it was all about the little things, the little nuances as you were walking through the streets and you happened to catch something that was going on. Last night, for example, it was the final night, so they might have just not cared at some point. But we were walking over in the Fall of Atlanta area, and at the gun, they had a gun sound that went off, like somebody was shooting the zombies from the top of the Macy's building. When the gun went off, a bunch of zombies just fell to the ground, and like they were all just been shot or whatever. Like, it was really quite fun. That stuff is what made the streets for me this year. Whether it was the Walker Bomb, something like that, where the actors were interacting with the environments around them, or interacting with the actors around them. In the case of the Fall of Atlanta, it was the survivors. So And also, they had a little pre-event every day before the event started. If you were waiting at the front to try and get in, they had a moment where a survivor would get on a speaker and start talking and be like, "What are you all doing here?" Zombies, whatever. And the zombies would come from the front of the park, and they'd all come towards the gate. They sort of bum rush the gate like they were trying to break down the gate and come in and eat us all. And then one of the zombies would walk up to where the survivor was, and it would lumber over to her, and the whole idea being that she doesn't see the walker, and the crowd's like, "Oh, the walker, the walker, the walker," and then she would beat the walker with a baseball bat, and sort of do this, yeah, like I'm queen of the world. They just killed the walker. So stuff like that was quite fun. I enjoyed that a whole lot. My gripe with the streets is that it was walker overload. Just walkers everywhere. I'm not hating on the walkers, because I think that's a wrong assessment. Because I think some people just like to hate on the walkers for the sake of hating The Walking Dead, and I don't think that's fair. I think when you're judging the street experience, it was just too much. It was just too much of the same. Walking around. It was just too much walker overload everywhere. But at the same time, the different locations, the sets, the woodlands, the campsite, like all that stuff, it was fun. But just too much walker overload. The chainsaw drill team, I feel bad for the chainsaw drill team, because the story that I heard, again, this has not been confirmed, and I'm not trying to start rumors or anything like that, but the story that I heard is that AMC didn't want the chainsaw drill team anywhere near the stuff in the streets. They didn't want them anywhere near the Walking Dead stuff, which is understandable. Coming from, looking at it from their perspective, it's like, well, we don't have these things in the show, so we don't want them we don't want them anywhere near the Walking Dead themed zones. So for the most part, the chainsaw drill team was cordoned off in the back of the park, mostly in front of Afterlife and Men in Black, and also in that little circle area where the one structure from Jaws still remains, where the bathrooms are. They were in that area. Chainsaw drill teams, they're always fun. So, I mean, no qualms there. But I kind of feel bad for them because they weren't able to sort of roam around the park, because they were, again, the story that I heard is that AMC didn't want them anywhere near the Walking Dead stuff in the streets. So, but that's just a story I heard. But the streets were still fun. I have no qualms with the fact that it was The Walking Dead. Even though I hate The Walking Dead, it was still fun. It still worked. Just too many. It was just walker overload. After you've gone through the streets so many times, nothing. I don't think the walkers are very scary, but some people do find zombies scary. Like this notion that some people go, zombies aren't scary, but you don't know what scares other people. Some people could be afraid of zombies. So, and I know some people personally that are afraid of zombies. So, I mean, it different strokes for different folks. I mean, if you have a genuine fear of zombies, you were not very thrilled when you were walking around Halloween Horror Nights 23. But if you don't think that zombies are very scary, or maybe you don't like The Walking Dead, it could have been a little bit too much overload, but still executed well. Again, they tried really hard. Some of the fan backlash last year was the lack of sets, and they tried hard to make the streets work. They tried hard, and the effort was there, but too many walkers, just way too many walker overload. But we still had fun. So the streets for me are going to get 3.5 out of 5. I think that if I had to take a wild guess, next year The Walking Dead will not be as prominently featured at the event. We might get a house. But if I had to guess, it will not be as in your face as it has been for the past 2 years. If you don't know, the streets this year were not supposed to be The Walking Dead. They were supposed to be something completely different. They were supposed to tie into the What Evil Takes Root stuff. And The Walking Dead was kind of dropped on them at the last minute. But given that, when you look at the fact that they didn't have a whole lot of time to put these streets together to encompass The Walking Dead, they did a good job. They really tried hard to give fans the sets back without having set scare zones, but still kind of having set scare zones. They tried. They tried hard, and in some cases it didn't work, and in some cases it did work. So they tried. So I got to give them props for trying, but still zombie or walker overload. A little too much of the same in the streets, and not a whole lot of variety. Although the sets were different, but just too many walkers, just way too many walkers. So 3.5 out of 5. I actually enjoyed last year's streets better. I had a much, not better, but I had a much more fun. I had a much. It was much more fun for me last year with the different hordes and the fact that they could go everywhere. Like it was a year. It was just fun. It was a fun year last year, and I had a much better time in the streets last year than I did this year. I didn't find myself sitting in the streets so much this year than I did last year. It was just a whole lot of fun people watching last year, just watching what where the hordes were going or what buildings they were going into or whatever. It was just a whole lot more fun last year, and there was a different variety. Yes, the sets they're pretty non-existent last year, but I still found the streets last year a whole lot more fun than this year. Just too many walkers. That was my big thing. Just too many walkers in the streets. Just too much of the same. Even though the streets were quite different, but still fun. I just didn't have as much fun this year as I did last year, and they did try. But my guess would be that next year The Walking Dead's not going to be as prominently featured. That's my 2 cents. So moving on, let's see what I got. A bunch of stuff this year. Like I said, I bought a lot of merchandise, more so than I have in the past. I was thoroughly upset this year that there were no shooter glasses. I have a shooter glass for every year that I've been so far, and the fact that I don't have a shooter glass for 2013 really pisses me off. And I did ask. I went up because I thought I might have missed it the first 2 nights, that they were just somewhere else. But no, they don't have the shooter glasses. So I was stuck buying this beast of a thing, the little Walking Dead Pilsner glass. It is nice. I'll give it that. It's got weight to it. It looks nice. But it's not a shooter glass, and it looks really out of place next to all my other shooter glasses. So I got the Pilsner thing, the much coveted Jack the Clown vinyl, of course. This thing, everyone went wild for this thing. I bought 3 of them. No, I will not be selling it. I know some of these things are now selling on eBay for like 40 or 50 bucks. This thing costs like $10, people, and I know it's like an exclusive, but it's $10 fucking dollars. Why would you pay $50 for this damn thing? What else did I get? We got some maps. We got our Walking Dead map here. Got our Evil Dead map here. Evil Dead. I got my lanyard. Same lanyard from last year, though. I didn't buy a new lanyard. And that's pretty much it. I have my blinky glass, of course, the quintessential drinking buddy blinky glass, which is not here at the moment. I got 2 of those. And that transitions into my next thing. We'll talk about Legendary Truth. Legendary Truth had merchandise this year. You can buy merchandise. This, of course, is the Cerebin Legion symbol, which I was a part of. We played horror. It was Horror on Earth last year. This year it was Legendary Truth. Same sort of worked the same way. Just a little bit more complicated in terms of its tasks and stuff. let's see. Let's get the cards out. Like last year, I had the Horror on Earth card, which I don't have with me at the moment, but this year it was Legendary Truth. And the whole idea being that Legendary Truth was investigating the Legions of Horror last year. So Legendary Truth kind of took over the investigation and the online and the online play and the in the park gameplay. You're supposed to be investigating the Legions of Horror. This is the card from this year. So that's the front, and then that's the back. Legions of Horror. My issue with Legendary Truth this year: your tech sucks. I am not one to rant, but your tech is terrible. If you're going to do this next year, which you are, please fix your tech. Last year, of course, one of the ways that it worked last year was if you had this card, but it was Horror on Earth, not Legendary Truth, you would leave the house or a house, and there would be a little RFID scanner, and you scanned your card, and you got points. And you got online badges, little online badges that went to your profile on the Legendary Truth website. Worked the same way this year. One of the biggest things that people wanted last year was some kind of an indicator light on the RFID scanners to know that your card actually scanned. They got that this year. The scanners this year were the Legendary Truth head, the little lion head there, that little thing there. And when you scanned the card, its eyes lit up. And it was to indicate to you that your card scanned. I don't care what the people behind the scenes say. Even though those eyes lit up, didn't mean your card scanned. There were a lot of technical issues this year, whether it was the scanners not working properly or stuff online. The other thing I'll say is that I found a lot of the gameplay this year to be a little bit unfair. And by unfair, I mean some of the tasks that we had to complete in the park would not have been possible without, I mean, it's possible, but without an express pass or another form of skipping the line pass, you probably weren't going to get your tasks done because most of the tasks came on Thursdays and Sundays, and in some cases Wednesdays. But it was busy. So if you didn't have an express pass, or you didn't have whatever it is, the guest assistance pass that some people had that you could piggyback off of, you probably weren't getting your tasks done. And you probably weren't going to, because a couple of the tasks involved doing all 8 houses and also doing they had window scanners this year instead of just the houses. So there were certain areas in the park that had windows, the symbol again was in a window, and part of the task called for you to go and scan your badges in a certain order in these windows or whatnot. So they had a lot more. They tried to branch out a little bit, and but if you didn't have that pass, express or gap, it would be really hard for you to complete some of these tasks. I personally did. I did two of the tasks we did. It was Field Op Alpha was the name of the badge that you were supposed to receive, and Field Op Bravo, and also of course 8 and 1, which last year they had a 7 and 1, but obviously there's 8 houses this year. I did the 8 and 1 thing 10 times. I did the Alpha task at least twice. Once with piggybacking off a gap pass, and once without. And I did the Bravo twice, 3 times. Twice without, once piggybacking off a gap pass. So, and nothing to show for it. No badges, no points, no nothing. And they tell you to email. You email. I've emailed since the very beginning, and I haven't gotten my badges or my points yet. The event's now over, so I doubt I'll be getting those. But just very uneven gameplay. A lot of the gameplay mixed with the technical issues and some of these tasks you have to have some people, people who have an express pass or a gap pass can do some of these other things, like a 5 in 1 night, for example, or a 5 times, or a 10 times, or um, you know, whatever. I mean, they have the option or the opportunity to do these things fast and to do these things with ease without having to worry about waiting in a line for 2 hours. To try and get these things done. Yes, it is just a game. I will. It is just a game, but still, if you're going to play, if you're going to try and play, which I did. I tried to play this year, even though I said I wasn't going to. I did try to play. I started playing, and I wasn't going to play as hard as I did last year, but I ended up playing a whole lot more than I thought I was going to. Um, so I mean, when you're going to play, you want your stuff to work. You should have your stuff to work. The other issue is that last year, when Horror on Earth was done, the last task involved doing. They had like a little Q&A session, and they talked about some of these things that they wanted to do, but weren't able to do because they didn't have the money or whatever. Oh, that's the other thing. Last year we got the Horror on Earth card for free. They gave it out. This year we had to. If you wanted the card, you had to pay for it. This was like $6. If you didn't want the card, you got the little RFID sticker put on your frequent fear pass, because the frequent fear pass, if you bought the frequent fear pass, you were automatically eligible to play the games in park, and that was free. But we wanted. This is actually a replacement card. I went up last week, I think, with concerns about my card not working properly. So they gave me a new card. Come to find out, yesterday, when I got the new card, they didn't activate it properly again. So that's another reason why I wasn't getting my stuff. So there was a whole lot of issues with the tech this year. And my suggestion, I am not one to hate on things. If you know me or if you see any of my videos, I am not one to do that. But it was frustrating this year because, trying to do some of these things, especially doing some of these 8 houses in 1 night tasks without an express pass or without any kind of gap pass or whatever, you're doing all 8 houses and you're waiting in lines that are 2 or 3 hours long, and then anywhere between an hour to 2, sometimes 2.5 hours. You get to your last thing and the damn thing doesn't work. That's frustrating. That's really frustrating. So it got to a point where I just didn't care anymore, which brings me to back what I was saying before about last year. They talked about stuff that they wanted to do this year or last year and didn't have the opportunity to do. This year they implemented some of those things, which is fine. But if you're going to do stuff like that, you need to make sure that your stuff works first, because some of these things involved. There was one card which was a multiplier card, and the way that worked was each legion that was in the park had to pick a leader to represent the legion. You went up and you got a special card. In this case, it was a multiplier card, and the way it worked was your legion leader, whoever your pick was, went through the house, scanned the multiplier card, and then scanned their little CFO card, and them and everyone behind them got extra points. In the case of the legions which had more people involved, they got extra points, but they didn't get as many extra points as, say, my legion, the Cerebral Legion, which didn't have as many people. So they got, I think, the top 3 were the Bacanoids and the Strengoids and the Morphans, and they got 300 points. And then also they had a window, and the window that they can scan the card in, I think, was 10 minutes. The Cerebins and the Mashorians and the Karizans got 1,000 points per multiplier card. And we got a half-hour window. But still, what I talked about before about the Express Pass or the Gap Pass or whatever, that's not possible. If you're, let's say you're in the park and you don't have an Express Pass or a Gap Pass, but the Legion leader who's scanning his multiplier card um, you have a half-hour window to scan your card to get your extra points. But you're waiting in line for an hour. That doesn't work out very well. And the only way that it's possible to get those extra points is if you had an express pass or if you piggybacked off somebody else's gap pass. Personally, I don't think that's fair. Again, I know it's just a game, but that's just not fair. That just doesn't. The gameplay is not fair. It's not a equal gameplay at that point. And then if the tech doesn't work, which the first night didn't work properly, then the second night that you were able to use it didn't work properly again. The same glitch they had the first night, which they had to fix right away. So there was a lot of issues. I will tell you a funny story. My card, like I said, and my luck this year with the scanners just was not good. The tech just didn't work, and it didn't work properly. One of the tasks that we did, same deal. Each legion had to pick a leader, go up and get a special card. In my case, it was this card, the Jekyll and Hyde card. Now, if you played the game this year, you probably are very familiar with the Jekyll and Hyde card. The way the Jekyll and Hyde card worked was, in my case, I had the card, so and I was piggybacking off a gap pass, so I got lucky there, and everyone else got lucky behind me, or unlucky. The way the Jekyll and Hyde card worked is that you went up to the scanner, you scan the Jekyll and Hyde card, you scan your card. You would either add 10% of your overall total score points. So in my case, at the time I had 97,000 points or whatever. With the Jekyll and Hyde card, I would get 10% of that added on to my score, so 10% of 97,000. Or you would lose 10% of that 97,000. Now my card didn't work the entire event. Okay, I did the 8 and 1s, I did the Bravos, I did the Alpha tasks and all that stuff. I knew that my card, the one night that my card was going to work was going to be that night. And I knew that I was going to lose points. I lost almost 40,000 points that night, which is a lot of points because the online games were only 10 points this year. So that's a lot of online gameplay. And it's also a lot of in the park gameplay, So this card was a bitch. This was the bane of my existence that night. But at that point, like I said, I didn't care anymore because the crap hadn't worked properly all game. So I just didn't care. I said, okay, well, I'm just going to go ahead and do it anyway. And it was still fun, but 40,000 points. That's a lot of fucking points to lose. I still somehow managed to stay the Cerebin leader as of right now. And I dropped, when I lost the 40,000 points, I dropped to the overall leaderboard to like 20th. But in the past couple days, I gained some of that back. So I ended up, as of yesterday, I was like 11th overall. Yeah, I'm still first in the Cerebin Legion. So, but the other thing about this year is that Legendary Truth is going to be all year. They're doing the game all year. I don't know how it's going to work from here on out, but the game will be played, or there will be elements of the game that will still go on throughout the year. And one of the things is the backstories. I'm talking about some of these Chicken Little people that want backstories and stories and stuff like that. This is where this comes in. There's a lot of backstories and a lot of things from the past and trying to piece storylines together and who got killed here and Goth Wackies and Captain Lazy Bastards and all this stuff. Like there's a lot of stuff involved. And P.S. if you went on the Hornites website and you saw the little video blogs, well, we know who she is because of the game. We know what her connection is to Legendary Truth now as of last night. The other thing I'll say is that the finale of this year seemed very half-assed. Last year, while it was tiring running around the park doing all this stuff, sitting down, and all that stuff seemed very organized. The fact that we got cookies and water and stuff like that, and we had all the Legion vessels and stuff. All that stuff seemed planned out. The final task last night just seemed like a huge cluster, like it was kind of thrown together at the last minute. Now, the cool thing that I enjoyed was seeing these characters that run throughout the course of Legendary Truth actually in person and in windows and stuff. And that was pretty cool. But the organization of that last task just didn't seem it wasn't cohesive. It just all seemed kind of scattered. But nevertheless, the game is not over, so it does continue. How long the online stuff continues, I have no idea, but I'm sure it'll be played next year as well with other cards and all that stuff. But that's my thing with Legendary Truth. Not as fun as I did not have as much fun this year playing as I did last year, because even last year with all the some of the tech issues they had last year, there was still a sense of fun playing these games, and going to the park and meeting people, and all that other cool jazz. This year it wasn't like that. As a matter of fact, a lot of it pulled some people apart. Some of the way that things were going this year, especially on nights where you had to choose a Legion leader to take one of the cool fancy cards. I'm actually grateful that the Serapins didn't have a whole lot of people, because in some of the groups that were much larger, egos get involved and or can get involved, and things happen. So it is what it is. But overall, not as much fun as I had playing the game last year. I think also last year was it was a whole lot smaller last year. People playing, still fun, but the tech issues were really frustrating. Some of the uneven gameplay. I don't want to say it was unfair, because that's going a little too far. But the gameplay was uneven. It wasn't the game was not distributed evenly amongst all the players, and some players got advantages over other players, and trying to get points, or even what they did with my card. It says CFO on the bottom there, collective field officer, or operative, right? Operative, yeah, operative, collective field operative. Was the people who were playing in park, and then the people playing at home were called CROs, people who couldn't get to the park. Just like last year was kind of the same thing. There were people that were playing at home that couldn't get to the park and play in the park. They did some wacky stuff with that this year, like at some point the CROs got way more points for playing the online games than the CFOs got, and there were tasks that the CFOs were doing in the park where the CROs were getting their points. So you would get points, and you get points to all your CROs that weren't playing in the park, and they were also getting badges. So, like I said earlier, when you did some of these tasks and stuff, you got badges, little digital badges on your profile for your achievements. So, like, think of it like you're getting, if you're playing GTA 5, and you get a trophy for something. Same deal, except it's a badge. But some of these badges, they were getting for people that were completing like their 10 times or their 5 times, or something along those lines. And that was stuff that me myself I completed in the past, but still hadn't gotten my crap for. So, but these other people that weren't even playing in the park got those badges. So yeah, it was frustrating. It was a little frustrating in certain aspects of the game, and just not as fun playing last year. I do get to keep this awesome Jekyll and Hyde card though. I'll give them that much, because we did have to pay this year for our CFO cards. Unlike last year, they just kind of gave out the Horror and Earth cards. So that being said, we will close out Halloween Horror Nights 23. Overall, a strong year, very strong year. Not the end all be all of years. Very strong house lineup this year. The streets were okay. They were good. They weren't great. They were good. Um, Fun, but just too many walkers. Legendary Truth was fun, despite the tech issues and some of the other issues. Not as fun as it was last year, but still a whole lot of fun getting to meet people and doing these tasks with people you've just met and stuff. Really, that is the biggest aspect of this game, and I think that's the biggest aspect that people will take away from both Horror on Earth and Legendary Truth this year. I think I said it on the video last year. One of the biggest things for me last year was getting to meet all these people who have the same interests that I do, playing this game, and just a whole lot of friend making, making new friends and stuff like that, and hanging out, and especially when you give up at a certain point, you just hang out. But overall, I'm going to give HHN 23 a 4 out of 5. A strong year. Still a little room for improvement in certain areas that were kind of flat last year, but a strong year. And also a very fun year. I did have a whole lot of fun this year. I probably fun, even though it was very tiring. There was a lot of fun to be had this year, and a lot of bitching and moaning about Legendary Truth Tech, but fun. Fun doing all that stuff. So I think a 4 is fair. I think it is. I'm sad that it's over, but now it's start. It's time to start speculating on Horror Nights 24, which is over a year away. It's depressing, but it is what it is. But that is the end of my 2-part epic Gone with the Windish Horror Nights My Talking Head update. And as always, you can comment, subscribe, send me an email through the website. It goes on, even though my talking heads might not be here a whole lot in the coming year. But I'm still here. I'm still gonna try to kick on and do the website all by my lonesome, because I love the event so much. So I have no problem sacrificing some sleep. But that is it for now. And until next Halloween Horror Nights, I will talk to you guys. Well, not until next Horror Nights, but until next year, with speculating and the event and stuff, I will talk to you guys later. I'm not drunk, I promise. Talk to you guys later.